we've been doing this for 26 years, and we are constantly refining the process. But the topics we're going to discuss and go over are assessment, connect, qualify, submit, track, and adjust. And those we'll break them down into specific tips and ideas of how you can incorporate these into your own prospecting program. And then we're going to open it up for discussion for anybody that has questions and would like some insight on how we do our prospecting. So should you be here, we've got two groups of people here. One is our community clients. We love you all. We intimately get to learn and understand what our communities that are a part of the GSLI community network have as assets and how they can help the companies that we assist in their expansions and relocations. And we have some non-member communities in here today that are just kind of trying to get a grasp and understand how we go about doing what we do on a daily basis. And hopefully we can align with some of the efforts that you're implementing to bring companies to your own locales. Little housekeeping items. Everybody should be muted when we bring them in. Everybody's muted, but if for any reason you come off mute, make sure that you mute. If you have a question, there's a little hand that you can click on. It'll raise and bring it to my attention that you have a specific question. I will typically wait till we get to the Q&A to go through those. And so if you could ask all your questions by clicking on the question and answer button, and that'll open up a box and it'll put you in queue for answering or getting your questions answered. If we have an opportunity to open up the mic, we'll bring you on live. We are recording and transcribing this master series, and it'll be available to everyone post webinar. So who is with us today? Myself, Eric Kleinsorge. I am the CEO and chairman of Global Site Location Industries. Been doing this for 26 years. Have really enjoyed the process of putting companies in contact with communities that can assist them both on a job and a business standpoint. My job today is kind of give you an overall perspective of how we go about our process. I've got Brooke Edwards. She is our project director, and she's going to give us some insight on how she manages the process, so oversees the entire process of gaining new project leads. And we've got Ashley Kleinsorge, and Ashley, I would say, is the person in the trenches, the one reaching out, communicating, engaging with the companies to get their interest, to work with our communities and learn about their projects. And so she's going to kind of give you a perspective of what it takes and what are the needs from a ground level. Quick overview of GSLI. There are three things that we really feel make us stand out in what we do. First of all, it's the experience. We've been doing this for 26 years, and we continually fine tune and hone in the process. COVID was probably one of the biggest challenges that we had, and the way we pivoted with some of the Zoom technology really helped set us apart and bring in transparency to the process. We're very unbiased. We don't care where the projects ultimately locate. We just care that they're successful because we want them to come back to us again and again for future locations. So we feel it's our job to put these companies in touch with the communities as quick as possible and let their conversations help direct where they're going to ultimately locate. And we do work on an exclusive basis. We pare down the states and we look at each state, and typically it's about an average of 5 communities per state that we bring into the GSLI community network. Those 5 communities represent themselves and their state to any of the projects that align. So we've kind of flipped the site location process for the communities to allow them to deselect the companies versus the companies deselect them. Quick stats, since 1994, we have identified over 2,125 projects, which have accounted for 53,125 jobs, and that's continually growing. 6.3 billion of capital investment, and securing over 31 million total square feet of manufacturing and business space. We're really excited about our new portal that just launched earlier this month. A lot of new tools, a lot of great feedback from the members, getting tremendous feedback on the new tools that we've added in terms of taking notes, seeing the status and where it is. And probably the biggest update we've done is updates on every project every 45 days so that they can understand where that company is in the process of their location. If you want to check it out and you haven't been there, it is at www.new.gslipprojectportal.com. Go ahead and mark your calendars. These are some of the most exciting events that we host. We've got a Project Hitch coming up on June 9th. It's going to be at 1 o'clock. For those that have experienced our Prospect Live events, we welcome you back. If you haven't, please make sure you attend one. We bring the project in. We spend about 45 minutes to an hour talking with the project, diving in, seeing what their tipping points are, see what their motivations are, and really helping the communities understand what they are in need of to be successful, thus allowing them to be better at submitting and providing that company with submissions. I'm going to throw up our first poll. And go ahead and put it in the chat box if you could. Let's go back to the other poll if you could. If you have the challenge, let's go ahead and do this poll. We'll just flip-flop it. What is your best method for generating new prospects? If you could take a few minutes and answer that, we'll pull it down after about 3 minutes. And getting some good feedback. Looks like telemarketing, third-party lead generation, state issue leads, email, marketing tips, some of the standard ones. A big jump on third-party lead generations and trade shows. And we're excited. Trade shows are coming back. We're starting to talk with some of them about going and working those shows to get prospects. So the first topic I'll talk about is assessment. And assessment is really your foundation. So the tip I can give you, first tip of the day, is host your own discovery day and clearly identify your perfect prospect before you do anything. I always use the example of you're going to put a ladder on the wall, and that's your advertising and that's your marketing. You're going to have all of these potential companies receiving your messages, reacting to your messages, and climbing that ladder. And everyone that climbs that ladder, you want them when they get to the top to be able to successfully locate there. So all of your investment dollars should go towards that perfect prospect. So clearly identifying that helps you also identify where you're going to go with your marketing. The 3 areas I really like to see a community, if you're going to do this and start your own program, start off with industry. What are your strengths as industries? So what are your existing industries? Are there any clusters? And more importantly, the second, what's the workforce? So clearly identify the size. What's too small? What's too large? And what's your sweet spot for workforce size as it relates to those industries? That's been a challenge. And I was at IEDC and some think tank sessions and things talking about the challenges of workforce. And that's the number one question we have, and probably one of the motivating factors a lot of the companies that we're working with right now that are moving into different states is available workforce. So always develop that, but clearly define in your marketing, when you pick up the phone and qualify someone, what is the size of workforce and do they meet your needs? And then take an assessment of the building and sites that you have. Make sure you have a good, clear inventory, and all 3 of those need to align with each other when putting together your profile of a perfect prospect. I want to share this with you guys, and I'm going to make this available. We host a discovery day, and I've got about a 30-page document that will walk you through everything you need to identify to come up with the perfect marketing message, to have a clearly defined perfect prospect, and to start honing in on what type of methods you're going to employ to go out and get prospects. This is an overview of what the document has in it. We do a virtual windshield tour. If you can do a real windshield tour, treat yourself as a prospect. What do you want to show them? What are the assets? What are the advantages? Why is somebody going to locate there? Show them the quality of life. That'll help you identify the golden prospect. That will then help you put together a clearly defined marketing message and put together your main goals of your campaign. Next thing we really kind of focus in, I call them pillars, but you want to clearly define what are your entry points. How is somebody going to get in contact with you? Is that through your website? Is it through emails? Is it through LinkedIn? Is it through magazine advertising? Whatever those pillars are, and I like to try to focus on the best 7. So what are your best 7 entry points that a prospect can get in touch with you? And then marketing magnets. You don't have to go out and create some all new materials. Think about your website. Think if you have any white papers. Think if you have any brochures, digital brochures. What are the assets that you have that you can put out there to get people to engage with you and connect? Just putting a message out there doesn't get engagement. Give them something that they need to download to capture their email address and start that engagement. Send it to them through LinkedIn. But identify the marketing magnets that you have, and then take a look at your staff and really identify who's doing what and what are the roles, so that whenever the messages are going out, as prospects are coming to get in, who's qualifying them, who's engaging with them, and what steps do they get handed off to someone else in the company to work. Always set your benchmarks and deadlines. That allows you to stop and take a look at what you're doing on a scheduled basis, so that you can identify if what you're doing is working, and then put together a tracking and reporting discussion. How are you going to report these to your board? How are you going to track to make sure that they don't get lost in the cracks? As I said, if you want a free copy, if you could put up the yes/no poll, all you have to do is answer yes on it. That'll let me know to email you directly a copy of this document that you can use yourself. And if you want, you can also just email us, give us your contact information at info@gslisolutions.com. So with that said, we're gonna kind of transition over to our second part. And Brooke, love to have you come on, and why don't you talk about Connect?
Hey, Eric, can you hear me okay?
It might speak up just a little.
Sure thing. Yes. Hi, everyone. So like Eric had mentioned, my name is Brooke Edwards, and I am the project director at GSLI. So I help manage the site selection process between our community clients and our projects, and that also involves managing projects and helping clients manage their submissions, and then also just communicating with our projects once we receive those submissions in. So my main tip today is centered around connecting with your prospects. And the tip is use a multi-touch strategy to influence an executive's perception of your area. So a few break-off points about this tip. If you build it, they will come. There's this mindset, and it's completely wrong. So though a website or internet presence is one of the most effective marketing techniques, building a standout website will not be enough to attract your prospects. And if you don't have an awareness plan developed already, you need a plan that takes a company's expansion needs into account. Because corporate executives and site location advisors, they rely very heavily on multiple types of information sources. So if you can keep your goals in focus, your plan needs to incorporate multiple touch points to speak to them and serve their needs. I know our company, and Eric mentioned this earlier, our company has 7 pillars of outreach that we utilize in our lead generation efforts. And I'll just go through these really briefly, but these 7 are email campaign outreach, social media prospecting, contributed content and industry news outlet ads, calling companies, we do trade show exhibition and attendance, lots of internet research, and then we also utilize clients for referral leads. So executives are really looking for you to be as candid yet succinct as possible with the way that you're reaching them. So through a non-salesy approach, I think that you can create a memorable and clear area perception using a multiple touch point strategy similar to the 7 pillars that we have. So sometimes perception is everything. So to be really effective, you have to be incredibly consistent. Campaigns, content, and messaging must be delivered on a consistent basis, and that is the key to successful marketing. Determine a budget and over time, a budget of time and or money, and this will each year, and keep to that allocation. So over time, you'll find what platforms, what activities, actions, or messaging work for you. However, the effort applied in each one must be consistent, or it even must be increased or decreased based on the ROI. And that leads into tracking your success. So if you're not tracking the success of your campaign and adapting the messaging and implementation for better ROI, your online marketing efforts will most likely go stagnant. Now, getting the word out seems pretty easy, but do not do Me Too marketing. And I'll further explain this. Me Too marketing means you're leaning too heavily on the promise of being pro-business or having a strong workforce. And I have some really bad news. Everyone is using that same message. So you need to really take a look at your community and find what's really special about it. Why do you live there? Why do you work there? And really promote this uniqueness. So you want to ask yourself a couple of questions. Why do people move into my area? What do we have that neighboring cities or towns or counties don't have? And why would someone care about coming here? I usually tell our community members to survey existing businesses and use them as social proof to further validate why businesses would move into their area. Another example is you could even play on your area's weaknesses, on another area's weaknesses. So you can talk about the benefits of locating to your area versus some negative points of locating in another area. You can go ahead, Eric.
Could Cresta put up this poll? Want to kind of find out what's your current best method for generating new prospects, and always love to share that insight on what people are doing. That, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the poll that we put up at first? Okay. We'll go ahead and go with those results. I think we got plenty of responses there. If you could go ahead and answer this, what's your biggest challenge when you face when looking for prospects? If you could answer in the chat box, that'll kind of give us an idea of where we can talk and get some answers for you guys as we go through this program. So just put it in the chat box. With that said, we're going to bring on Ashley Kleinsorge. She's our project manager. She is 100% day in and day out, 8 to 9 hours a day on the phone, emailing, outreaching, talking, qualifying, and doing all of the communication to get companies to engage with us. So Ashley, if you could, let's talk about the qualify.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm glad you all could make it. I'm Ann, the project manager here for GSLI. Lead generation is definitely not easy, but it's fun and can be rewarding. So hopefully today I can give you some insight on, what it takes to really effectively generate some good quality leads. My tip for you today is thinking outside the box can lead to more productive engagement. I want to touch on 3 major points that really help me. The first being research. What resources are you using to find quality leads? There's 2 types that you can use. There's free versus paid for services. There are third-party resources that can identify leads for you. And we do suggest using these, but you do have to keep in mind that tons of economic developers and site selection consultants, they do use these sites. We've reached out to them and asked about, the competition, and there's fewer site selection groups and economic developers, and with some there's more. So it does create more competition, and you have to get creative with the outreach that you're doing once you're finding the leads. Google Alerts, though, something I want to mention, is a great free resource to track expanding companies. You can also discover articles that may indicate their need for growth. I use this a lot by using the email alerts. This uses trigger phases so that you can always know of important company announcements. So, if they went through a recent funding round or have plans of expansion, you'll get them sent directly to your email. I like to use that a lot when I want to track a specific company. It's super easy for me. When doing your research, you really do have to think outside the box. Look for companies that have recently obtained a large round of funding. You can look for companies that have expanded multiple times in the past year. That's been really successful for me in the past because, if they're rapidly growing and expanding operations, they're bound to want to create more facilities and create more jobs in the next coming years. You can research companies that have hired new employees in certain departments like business development or operations. This has also been really successful for me, and a super helpful tool to find that information is Sales Navigator on LinkedIn. You can look into that, but that's been super, super helpful for me. And also researching lists of just fast growing companies. Then, once you have your list of desired prospects, you can begin the outreach process, which is a little more difficult, but how are you generating these conversations with the leads you've found, and are you using the right method? The personal method I like to use is, multiple of them. I don't have one specific one that I stick to. Email is a natural outreach method. You don't always have a valid contact email though, so it doesn't always work. I found the most success through utilizing LinkedIn. As long as you can locate the expansion decision maker's name, which they normally include in press releases, you can typically find them on LinkedIn and send a connection invitation. In the invitation, you can leave a little note, and I recommend you kind of let them know why you are wanting to connect, but keep it simple. Something I typically say would be, "Hi, I see your company has been experiencing major growth this year, and I wanted to reach out to see if you had plans of expanding operations." Keep it simple so that they don't feel overloaded with information right up front. If you do not have a specific contact you're wanting to find, meaning you just have really a company that you're set on that you want to outreach to, I highly suggest going to the company LinkedIn page, which almost every company has one. And there's a section on there listed as people, and you can find employees to connect with to start conversations. So I typically reach out to executive level employees and people in business development or operations. In the outreach process, I have found that being casual when connecting leads to definitely a better response rate. Don't overload them with information right up front. Just really portray your interest in the company and let the conversation lead itself. You don't want to overwhelm anyone or think you're trying to sell something when in reality you really just want to help and create those jobs. When reaching out to multiple companies at once, though, it really can become hectic and the process gets a little overwhelming. So organizing your prospects in one place will be super beneficial. This way, you can keep track of your outreach and stay on top of your leads, which leads me to the final thing I wanted to talk to you about today, which is just organization in general. What do you use to organize your prospects, and how do you set reminders to consistently follow up? Organization is an extremely important step when it comes to developing a lead nurturing plan. There's a chance that you could let a good like a good lead slip through the cracks if you don't keep them on your radar consistently, constantly, always looking after, always following up. So I would recommend using Trello. Trello is an online, project management software for small and large organizations. So it's a great way to organize information and keep track of tasks and next steps with outreach. We use Trello to communicate across all the departments, but we really do love how organized it keeps us as we prospect and communicate with leads, because the list does get long and it's easy to let one go weeks without following up, which is unacceptable when you're trying to generate quality conversations. I typically follow up with each one of my leads probably once or twice per week. So having set reminders to do so keeps me consistent and will definitely lead to more conversations, which will be key in your outreach process. It can take anywhere from 1 week to 3 months to get in touch with a prospect, especially if you're looking to speak with the decision makers. So, don't give up. I've had a project that, it's been a year in the making and, we're still working on that. So it does take a while, but stay consistent. You have to remember they are very busy people that you're reaching out to, so it may take some time to see any response. If you don't see a response, make sure and change up your subject lines if you're using email, finding different contacts on LinkedIn to connect with from the company if you do hit a wall. In my experience, I've had mid-level employees from companies, forward my requests to executive level employees. So don't ever shy away from connecting with anybody possible in order to generate results. But keep in mind that this is why organization is extremely important, because you want to track each step in your outreach process so that you don't end up doubling your efforts and you can remain consistent, because the bigger your list grows, the more you'll have to remember, and staying organized is most important. With that being said, though, our clients don't have endless time to search and qualify leads. So they love working pre-qualified leads right within our portal. We shoulder the burden of an EDO's limited time and resource allocation so that, you can focus on closing deals.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. So we'll go on to tip number 4, and we'll talk about the submission. And that's probably one of the most talked about topics from our clients, because you can do all this marketing, but if you don't have a good, accurate submission, you could, it could be the difference between landing and losing a deal. So Brooke, if you could talk about the submission process.
Sure. Thank you, Eric. So my main tip today is the prospect will know whether you're really listening to their needs by the information you present. And this is exactly right within your proposal. And you have to listen to them, because change and finding a new facility, that isn't an easy thing to do. So whenever you are crafting a proposal, you need to express solutions to the prospect's needs in a very succinct, clear manner. These corporate executives, they need to review solutions most important to their problems, and they just do not have the time to review 20, 30, 40, 100 pages of information before you even address their needs. And no, they are not asking for multi-page labor reports or case studies on these initial RFI searches. They really just want you to provide the solutions as clear as you can in the quickest way possible. Let your data supplement your proposal. They will ask for that if it's necessary. And typically what we recommend is that you craft a personal cover letter to start your proposal off. And don't just make this a very cookie cutter cover letter. I would take the time to speak to your prospect as you would in person. It's your only chance to talk to them. And the rest of your proposal might be very structured and organized with data and content, but your cover letter is really that chance to speak with them without actually speaking with them. They're one of the most crucial components to a proposal, and I personally think that they normally determine if your proposal is even read by a site selector. Within these cover letters, you'll just want to make sure that you want to acknowledge their needs and then present solutions in a concise and brief manner. And then your data, your demographics, incentives, and buildings will just completely speak for itself. But your goal with that cover letter is really to engage on a very personal level. And within that, that also leads to the information you present in your proposal itself. You must provide only the most useful information first. So it's critical to provide that at the beginning of the proposal later, rather than later in the proposal. So we've reviewed thousands of proposals, and based on feedback that we've just received from corporate site locators or just companies that are reviewing some of these proposals, they need answers to their problems immediately. And they've requested that some of the information that you present in the proposal kind of follow this structure. So I'm just going to list out 5 categories of information that I would recommend putting in your proposal. And you could even structure it like this, or you can just make sure to touch on that before you go into any other information about sites and buildings. But first I would start with is incentive information. I'd next go into demographic information, talk about your major employers and companies that are finding success or industry that's successful in your area, and then go into available sites and buildings that you have. I would also include workforce statistics to further expand upon the labor, availability of labor, and the cost of labor in your area. When providing all this information, you do not want to make the prospect drink out of a fire hose. And we've heard this firsthand from some of the companies that we've worked with that they go, I don't quite know if the community even heard what we were asking for because of the information that they provided. And hey, we get it. We know you have a lot of great information and resources that you want to provide to these prospects. But the thing is, it's hard to identify your solutions to their needs when your proposal is really cluttered with data or reports or case studies, especially on an initial search. Some of these searches are very high level initially, and they just do not need that information up front because they're trying to locate geographic locations first and kind of narrow that search down. And once they have a initial search, they'll start going in a more granular level to evaluate factors that make sense to their business and factors that are important within your community. So just make sure not to overload them with information and turn them off in the process too early on, because we want to keep you as a community within the running as long as we can until it just doesn't make sense that you stay in the running. So most site selectors do have a short list of what they're looking for, and your mission should really be to find out what these needs are as soon as possible and address them as quickly as you can. And 2 ways that you can actually do this are have informal conversations with these prospects. This is usually done when you go to like a trade show or a conference, and you can work on building your small talk and probing a company for needs during expansion periods, even if they don't actually have expansions planned. So you can just ask questions and learn about their needs and just start to evaluate and sync up. Do my assets in my community actually match to a company's needs, especially in this type of industry that they're in? And a company really is not a lost cause just because they don't have an active project. Just like Ashley said, we'll talk to a company for over a year and develop a project with them before they're ready to actually make an expansion. So if we're following press releases or following company growth, that's a great first step to really evaluating if a company is going to be planning in a future expansion. Another tip, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but is to survey existing businesses to see where you shine. So some of the companies or industries within your area have a cluster mindset. So industries cluster together within a region because each firm benefits from being located near other related firms. So there are some common competitive strengths and needs. And so evaluate those benefits and use them to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I'd keep in mind, because I see a lot of the challenges you guys have put into the chat box, and some of them are, a rural location or not available sites, those types of things. I think if you address it in the cover letter, and I think this is the most important thing, talk to the prospect. Tell them, you know what, we're not on your short list. I see that you're looking at an alternative state, but you're the perfect industry of what we're looking for, and here's why. And if you let them know, it's not going to be a blind letter saying, I'm not asking about this particular community, but they have a reason they want to talk. And sometimes a well-crafted letter can really make the difference between getting on that short list or not. And trust me, the average short list, I don't even call it a short list anymore, I call it initial areas of interest, changes an average of 8 times from start to finish. And we've done the personal site visits, we've done the site tours, we've done everything, and it's great to hear from a prospect side what makes them change their minds. And so if you craft it directly to their needs and put it in a clear and concise format, they're going to read that and get deeper into your proposal, therefore expanding your actual pipeline of people that you're working.
And Eric, I have a quick point on that too that I like to share. So whenever we are working with companies, we always start off with just an understanding of where they initially want to look, what makes sense for them. So evaluating just certain factors like where their customer base is, or where do they get their supplies from, where are they shipping, and evaluate a couple factors and just ask, hey, what makes sense for your business? But also, would you consider these other locations? So typically it might be the case that a project has one state that they're looking at, and they come to us with just the perception is, hey, I want to go here. But we will actually expand on that for them and say, hey, have you even considered states that are bordering to this state because of X, Y, and Z? And they go, no, I hadn't, but I'd be very open to, learning more about that. And Eric, you've always expressed, sometimes with education, you don't really know until you know. And so in their case, we try to help them open up their horizon to other locations and other, community members that we have across the United States that are similar within the geographic search, but actually could be a really great match based on just learning about them and learning about the opportunities they have in their area.
Absolutely. And I always say that lack of interest in your community is typically lack of education. They just don't know enough to say, hey, I want to take a look at this lower population level, or I want to take a look at this community that has an existing building. So always keep that in mind when you're crafting your submission. Thank you, Brooke.
Sure.
So go ahead, let's put up this last poll. This is always a good number. How many projects, prospects do you identify or receive each month? That'll kind of give us an idea of what you guys are dealing with and how challenging, as I go into our last tip for the day, tip number 5. I always say this, and I was taught this at a young age, but the world's worst handwriting is still better than the world's best memory. And it's so true. You have to take notes. Take notes about what's motivating them. Take notes about their individual interest. If you have a conversation with them, know what their kids are about, know what their families are about, understand what's going to motivate their final decision, and try to play into those needs. You need to track the source. So we talked about 7 pillars. You really need to, every single prospect needs to have a source. Where did it come from? Where did you spend money? So tracking your sources. What are your 7 pillars, or your 7 different ways of getting people to contact you, and how much are you spending on each of those pillars? Therefore, at the end of the year, you can take, trade shows. They generated 15 projects over the 12-month period, and we invested X amount of dollars, and you can calculate what your ROI is. And once you start identifying what your ROI is, then you can also identify which ones generating your best prospects, which ones are converting into site visits, and which ones are actually turning into locations in your community. But each year we invest a huge amount of money in all 7 of our pillars. So we want to take a very close look at which pillar is delivering the most leads or prospects for the investment. That allows us to shift some dollars from one pillar to the other, and continue to fine tune and adjust it. And every year, it's going to change. Pandemics can change the way that you outreach. You're not doing as much travel, so you got to find alternative ways to get in contact with these prospects. I will say, the advent with everybody being separated from their businesses and being displaced at homes has really opened the opportunity for Teams or for Zoom or for people to do face-to-face contact because they're used to it. And communities have now opened up their firewalls to make Zoom calls, and companies are very familiar with teleconferencing. So implement that into your plan in terms of your outreach. This is a document that we put together. It allows us to, whenever a prospect comes through, obviously I've hidden the company and contact. This is a live list. But these are the headings that I would keep on file. Give it a project name, get the company name, contact, email, who is the person that's engaging with the prospect directly, so that anybody in your office knows who the communication point is with the project. What is the status? I would come up with probably 5 to 6 different status levels where they are in their process, and make sure that every time you engage with them, you're ranking where they are in their process and the source, and that's going to help you identify your ROI. Last updates, that's just to provide reports back to your director. What's the next steps you want to do to get them further down the process of taking a look at what you're doing. This obviously is a very simple, free type of tracking. It's very effective. Trello was another one that we've implemented for tracking them through the process, so that multiple people on our team can see who's engaged with them and what's the last contact. And obviously a paid for service would be a CRM like Salesforce, Goldmine, or one of those types of products that you want to put all of your prospects in. I do have an offer. That's all we've got for today. In terms of, we're going to go into a Q&A section. So if you have any specific questions, I'd love to open that up for discussion and help you get some answers to them. Put them in the question and answer box. But we are offering, if there are communities here that aren't involved with us, we'd love you to get involved with us. And a demo of our product is the best way to kind of go in and spend some time, 15 minutes with one of our coaches or community assessment directors. They can show you how the portal works. They can help you filter and try to identify a project. And we're going to extend you $1,500 worth of credits. And credits are used to unlock a project so that you can submit and get your information into them. And so if you'll, once we close this down, it'll take you over to our site where you can schedule a demo and really just kind of go in and see what type of projects that we have and that you can work, and see if there's some good matches. If there aren't any questions, I don't see any questions coming up right now, then we will start closing down this particular master series. We want to continue these. We're going to do them monthly. These will be on top of our Prospect Live events, but we want to continue to try to help communities get better in their prospecting efforts and fine tune exactly what they're doing. We know we're not the only source, but we feel like if we can help you master what you're doing and organize what you're doing on a local level, everybody wins because it creates jobs. If you want to get in contact with us, here is our information. We are the new portal, which I'd love you to go to, is www.new.gslipprojectportal.com. And if you need to email us, you can contact us through info@GSLIsolutions.com and give us a call. 469-778-2606. If you press 0, that you'll get in contact with our main line, and we'll make sure you get in touch with the proper person. With that said, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I am truly, and our whole team is excited about what we're experiencing in terms of the number of projects. They're at an all-time high for us. We hope you're seeing the same with your communities, and we'd love to continue to develop the relationships with you guys and better understand how these companies can make big impacts for your individual communities. With that said, till next time, thank you for joining. Good luck prospecting.